Welcome to the third part of the history of Battlefield. In the comment section on the last episode, many people said that they are looking forward to us covering Battlefield 2, and we will do that, after we have taken a little detour and illuminated some of the inspiration for Battlefield 2. Some younger viewers may ask themselves why we are about to cover a modification, a fan creation, something unofficial. The older ones may get a warm, nostalgic feeling of coming home to a place they haven't visited in a while. So not to keep anyone in the dark, we are talking about the Battlefield 1942 modification Desert Combat, released roughly 1 year after the first Battlefield. Players were carried almost over 50 years into the future, from the Second World War to the First Gulf War in the 1990s. A conflict that lasted just over a month. It took 5 weeks and 4 days for the coalition forces to overwhelm the Iraqi army. Trauma Studios, which was founded in 2003, developed a total conversion mod for DICE's Battlefield 1942 that took place in that very conflict. Meaning that they changed/reworked almost every aspect of the game. Smaller changes involved replacing the main menu background and the game's theme song, which, to be honest, is not to my personal liking and cannot hold up to the original, but props for all the work that went into it anyways. The more significant changes started with reworking existing and adding new maps, specifically created for this new setting. A wide range of new vehicles were added to the game. They not only came up with custom models, but also dedicated sounds were created. Amongst these new vehicles were the Willys Jeep's younger ancestor, the high-mobility multi-purpose wheeled vehicle, better known as the Humvee, the M1A1 Abrams, the T-72 main battle tank, pickups with machine guns, amphibious vehicles, a mobile Scud launcher, and new planes like my beloved A-10 Thunderbolt, the MiG-21, the Su-25 and the AC-130. Battlefield Vietnam players may remember it as the Spooky. Furthermore, they introduced helicopters, like the AH-64 Apache, the AH-6 Little Bird, the Mi-24 Hind, as well as the UH-60 Blackhawk. And as we noted in the previous episode, these helicopters and their game mechanics were developed before Battlefield Vietnam introduced them officially, so the credit for the first helicopters in Battlefield goes to this mod team. Adding to the selection of vehicles, there's a plethora of new guns, such as the Beretta M6, the High Power, the M16A2, and of course the AK-47, the Kar-15, the SVD Dragunov, the PMK LMG, and many more. As you have just heard, the scope of this mod is massive. A scale that even some sequels of AAA games have not delivered, and this was provided by Trauma Studios for free. But why does this mod deserve its own video? What makes this mod so special compared to other great mods like Battlefield 1918 that transferred the original World War II shooter into something that we officially got over a decade later with Battlefield 1? Well, Desert Combat, that sadly only made it to version 0.7 and by the way is still playable today, it drew the attention of DICE, and on September 1st, 2004, about 1 year after the founding, Trauma Studios were bought by DICE and became DICE New York. From this point onward, they worked with DICE Sweden on the overwhelmingly positively received Battlefield 2. The mod Desert Combat evidently had large influence on Battlefield 2. Unfortunately, we do not have access to early development versions of Battlefield 2, so we cannot say how much of the game relied on mechanics and assets carried over from the mod. There are, however, obvious similarities. After the release of Battlefield 2, DICE New York, the former Trauma Studios, was closed down by DICE and EA on June 7, 2005, only 1 year after the takeover. The seemingly cruel and ungrateful move by EA is, however sad it may be, standard practice in the gaming industry. The guys from the former Trauma Studios reformed and renamed themselves into Chaos Studios, and following a takeover by THQ, they developed the game Frontline Fuels of War, that unfortunately was rather unsuccessful and was not able to compete with Battlefield. And after the disappointing Homefront and the bankruptcy of THQ, the studio again had been dissolved, and this time definitively. Even though the story has a sad ending, I'm grateful for their contribution. Without them, Battlefield would not be what it is today. They shaped the future of the brand for more than just Battlefield 2. Once again, a mod had enriched the gaming industry, provided it with amazing work and set a milestone for future games. The fate of the mod and its creators just looks even more sad when you see what the future had in store for Battlefield modders, or modders of EA's games in general. They were forced to cease operations and great ideas were stifled in the bud. Desert Combat is a shining example of the importance of modding and a paradigm of what innovation can come from these sorts of projects. Because of that, this mod holds a special place in our hearts and in the hearts of many Battlefield fans. Therefore, thank you to Trauma Studios. And in the next episode, we will have a look at the game that Desert Combat inspired, Battlefield 2. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to stick around and check out some of our other videos, like the development history of Team Fortress 2, or some of the other episodes of the history of Battlefield. Until then, have a nice day and as always, goodbye and guten Tag.